Welcome back to the Data Protection Diaries, welcome back to the vlog. In today's video we are going to be finishing off our three-part series on dealing with an investigation with the ICO. In the first two parts of this series, if you haven't seen those already, we talked about an incident that we had to report to the Information Commissioner's Office. We went through what that incident was and also what the initial reporting to the ICO looked like. In this video, we're going to wrap it all up. So we're going to look at 5 key things that you need to do and that you should consider when you're reporting an incident to the ICO, and what kind of things you should be expecting to deal with once that report has gone in. As always, if you're new to the channel, please do make sure that you subscribe, and you can click the subscribe button down there in the bottom right hand corner. Of course, if you like this content, please do make sure that you click the like button. Also comment down below what part of the video did you find useful, what was interesting, what kind of content would you like to see in the future. It all just helps us to understand how these videos are received and what kind of things that you're going to be looking for. So for now, let's get on with what we want to talk about today. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is technically the third part in a 3-part series. We reported an incident to the Information Commissioner's Office, and we've had some back and forth, and we've had some discussions around what is going to be happening. In this video, I'm going to look at the 5 key takeaways that you can implement within your organisation should you ever have to report an incident, and the kind of things that you should be aware of when and if that time comes. Key takeaway number 1. The first thing that you want to do is be very careful about how and what information you are using when you first report the incident. Now, there is a kind of mindset that people will take the approach to give as much information as they possibly can as to what the incident was, what happened, how it occurred, what's being done to rectify it, and pile as much information as possible into that initial report. My guidance to you would be to take a step back from that. One of the challenges that we actually came across under this particular incident is that when we did the initial report, we had an idea of what we thought had happened, so what we thought had caused the issue, and we had that down to a technical issue, and that is what we would put in the report to the Information Commissioner in that initial report. On further investigation, it actually transpired that it wasn't a technical issue, there wasn't a problem with the tool that was being used, and it was actually human error. Now, that caused us a challenge down the line, because we then had to kind of backtrack from that and explain that to the case handler that initially we thought it was a technical issue and it wasn't. That could have been avoided if we'd just taken a bit more time, reported the basics of the incident, and then taken the time to investigate further. Of course, the important thing here to remember is that you have 72 hours within which to report the incident. That doesn't mean that you have to go into all of the detail if there is an ongoing investigation. So tip number 1 is don't over-report when you do your initial investigation. Give the information that you need to give to ensure that the Information Commissioner has been informed that there's an incident, but don't go giving information that you're not 100% confident until you've done your full investigations. Key takeaway number 2. Be prepared for a response from the regulator. Now, over the years, from the incidents that I've reported and the conversations that I've had, sometimes you just get a notification saying that everything's fine, there is no further action. Sometimes you're going to get questions. My advice to you is to make sure that you are prepared for those questions, regardless if you think the incident was small, regardless if you think that you had good controls in place. Be prepared to receive some questions. So start collating information that you have. start looking for the additional information that is going to be asked for, start building your incident file so that when you do get those questions, and if those questions do come in, you are ready for them, you are prepared, and you can hand that information over in a structured format that is going to help you and aid you when you're dealing with the further conversations with the ICO. Key takeaway number 3. Now, you should already be doing this as part of your standard framework structure, and that is, of course, keeping logs. Keeping logs of everything. And when I say keeping logs, I mean keeping logs of training, keeping logs of awareness materials, keeping logs of additional information that's being given out to people related to your technologies, your systems, your processes. Any kind of guidance that has been provided either before the incident occurred or that was delivered after the incident was identified. There is, of course, absolutely nothing wrong with going out, delivering refresher training, reminding people of their obligations, letting people know how a system or a process works after an incident, because that is going to be one of your controls. But make sure that you've got that documented. Who did you train? When? How often were they trained? Have you got a record of it? Have you got a log? Because believe me, that is one of the things that you are going to get asked for. So making sure that you've got that in place already is going to save you a lot of time and a lot of backwards admin when the time comes to provide it. So in number 4 is timelines. Now, interestingly enough, when we were dealing with this particular investigation, it is the first time that I've ever had to contact the ICO and ask for additional time. Normally we're able to get the information that we need, able to put everything together and get it over to them in the timelines that they stipulated. Interestingly enough, every time we had a communication from the case handler, they put a date on the communication as to when they wanted to receive a response by. While working on sort of the second part of the responses, we were a little bit behind. Things had been very busy with the organisation that we were supporting, and they were struggling to pull the information together. I was actually going to be away for a couple of days, so I made a call to the case handler just to give them a bit of an update on where we are and ask for a small extension of a couple of days to see if we could hand that information over on the Monday. The answer to that question was no. You have a timeline, we have given you a timeline, and we are now making sure that we are being more stringent when asking people to comply with those timelines. It's a good new approach in my eyes from the Information Commissioner. I think taking that kind of firmer stance, being a bit more forceful, is going to put them in good stead with the general public and with organisations that are reporting incidents. I was quite surprised. I kind of expected that a couple of days wouldn't really make any difference, but as the case handler said, it's not our responsibility to get it over. It is the responsibility of the controller. Whether I'm on holiday is irrelevant. That information should be provided, and it should be provided by the timeline that they have specified. So that's what we did. What's important for you is that you are conscious of those timelines. Once you get that response letter in, make a note of when you've got to get your responses out. Make sure that you're pulling your information together and make sure that you're not late getting your information back to the Information Commissioner. And finally, my 5th key takeaway, or my 5th key top tip when you're dealing with an incident like this, is do not panic. Whatever you do, don't panic. Remember, at the beginning you have 72 hours within which to report to the Information Commissioner. You do not need to provide a full investigation, full detail, full insights into the incident. You just need to get your report in. So that is the first thing. Don't panic about putting together loads of information. Concentrate on whether or not you need to report. And once you've decided that you do, concentrate on getting that initial report over. Once you've received your initial response, again, don't panic. Make sure that you are considering the questions that have been answered. Make sure you are preparing for what they're going to ask, so that you already know when it comes to you that you have the information available and you have it in a structured format. There is nothing worse than sending over loads of information in loads of different formats without any kind of instruction as to what it is. Don't panic when you're responding to those initial questions. Take the time, build out your evidence folder, give everything a marker or a reference if you want to provide a cover sheet explaining what those documents are, what questions they relate to. It's going to make it a lot easier for the case handler to understand where you are. And it's also going to make it a lot easier for you to keep track of the information that's been provided and how that relates to the questions that are being asked. If you start to panic and you start to rush and you're rushing over answers and you're rushing over information, invariably you're going to miss something, and that missing something may create more questions, may create more issues that you didn't need to do. So do not panic, take your time, make sure you're being structured and considered in your responses, and you'll find your experience in dealing with the internet is going to be much better. As always, this is a fairly succinct view of the world. I think these videos land slightly better than any of the kind of long form storytelling ones. Do let me know down in the comments, does this kind of content work for you? Is it useful? Do you find it interesting? Do you want to see more of it? Of course, if you like this video, please do hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we very much look forward to seeing you again in the future. Thanks very much.